Hello friends, Ben Ochart here. Thank you so much for tuning in. And today I want to speak with you about the 5 reasons why we need a betta fish in our life. So you know, if you follow my channel, that I'm probably best known for these kinds of beasts, keeping these large African cichlids. That's what the channel has been known for. But recently, not that long ago, I made the mistake of looking at the betta fish in the display at the Aquatic Critter here in Nashville. I saw a fish that really appealed to me, and I figured, what the heck, let's give him a shot. I brought him home, and as the saying goes, the rest is history. And in my keeping of this fish, certain things have become very apparent to me, and I want to share them with you in this video. So here are my 5 reasons why we should have a betta fish. Reason number 1 is interaction. One of the things I love about African cichlids is the fact that they're not squeamish and that they interact. They actually sort of engage. They engage you. And that to me is something important when you have a fish. And betta fish, interestingly enough, they actually do that. They're not squeamish. They're very engaging. They interact with you and act like the way what some people call water puppies. They have a water puppy attitude to them, which I find to be a lot of fun. And I didn't really know. I mean, because when you see them, you normally see them in the those small cups and small enclosures that they're displayed in different stores. So you don't really see much of anything, because very often they're rather lifeless, unless you go to some place like the Aquatic Critter, where they have slightly larger enclosures with water circulating and turning over constantly in the enclosures, these drip systems that you see, which I think are a much better way of displaying them. And by the way, as a side note, sometimes people say, well, I rescued these betta from PetSmart or Petco or my local fish store. Somebody made a very interesting point to me. Those videos actually don't make a statement or hurt the people that are mistreating betta fish. What it does, it puts money in their pockets and encourages them to continue to sort of abuse these fish in small cups. So don't save betta fish. Instead, shop and buy your betta fish from people who are treating them in a very humane manner. In other words, having them in enclosures with fresh water circulation, filtration of some kind, or buy them from a private source that actually has them living a pretty good quality life before you get a hold of one. Just my 2 cents on that. Point number 2 is cost. As far as getting into fish, I mean, imagine having to get into an aquarium where you ultimately need an aquarium that's 6 feet across to buy, colored up mature males. You're going to have to pay roughly between $35 and $75, and then another $50 to ship them, and that starts to get really out of control for folks, and undoable really for people who have a moderate or an average budget. So the cost of getting into a betta, I mean, you have the fish itself, which the fish is going to run you around maybe $10 for the fish I have, my mustard gas. It's called a mustard gas blue betta. That fish ran me around 20. There are more exotic varieties out there, of course, that you can pay more for, but on average, you're probably gonna get away with around $10. They're very accessible. They're all over anywhere you go, you can find betta. So accessing them is pretty easy. Please access them from places that treat them humanely, however. And also the setup for a betta doesn't have to be, you don't need a 50-gallon tank. I mean, certainly they would appreciate that if you did provide that, but you can have them living pretty comfortably and seemingly happy in something like a 5 to 10 gallon enclosure with that has some decor in it that's going to provide some stimulation, like caves, some plants, things of that nature. Just hiding areas to swim between and through, and things of that nature. You don't need an air stone. They will go to the surface and gulp air. Apparently, they're from small ponds and water that is just sitting, and so isn't very oxygen rich. So over time, they've evolved into a fish that can go up and actually gulp and breathe from the surface. So you don't need to spend a lot of money on pumps and oxygen and stuff. You don't need a lot of water flow. As a matter of fact, you want the water to be relatively still, because otherwise they're going to get blown around. And in their natural environment, again, it's small, very small ponds and puddles. So they're not living in in rivers and fast-moving brooks and streams. The fins, like a discus fish or an angelfish, you don't want a very powerful flow. So you don't need power heads, you don't need wave makers, things of this nature. You don't need to turn over the tank 10 times an hour like you might need to do with fish that create a tremendous amount of waste like these here. You don't need to do that. So your cost is going to be relatively small by comparison. Point number 3 is variety. I mean, as you can see, I mean, either by looking at mine or at looking at some of these photos that I've borrowed from, or as they say in England, I've nicked from from various locations on the internet. You can see here the variety is unlimited. Now, unlike when you, let's say you have a fish like a living stone eye or a Venusis or a Coengi or a gar or a trout. I mean, these fish are there are certain more spectacular specimens within that category, but for the most part, it's going to look very close to every other one that is actually bred, that is part of a true line, that is actually bred right. It's going to look very much like the other ones. With your betta fish, there are certain, like mustard gas, you'll get certain ones that look similar, but let's say your koi betta, fish like that. I mean, the varieties are just unbelievable within that group of fish. So variety is long fins, pointed, spiked fins. You get large crown type fins. You get sometimes a double pointed type of I mean, there's so many varieties, it's crazy. So variety is definitely a big plus. The last point is ease of care. You don't really need to be doing a lot of water changes. As a matter of fact, small water changes are probably better, and you probably can do them like every few weeks. Just replace the evaporation and maybe take it down maybe 10-15%. You don't want to do big massive water changes. Like you may want to do a big massive water change in a tank like this, only because there is so much waste production and nitrates can start to creep up pretty high. But with the betta, one fish in the tank, maybe you gave them a tank mate, maybe there's a snail or maybe a cory in there or something like that, but you're not going to have a lot of waste production. Plus you're feeding what they can eat like within a minute or two, and so you're dropping just a few little specks of food in there, and so you're not going to have a tremendous amount of waste. So the care of it is very simple. If you have a very slow trickle filter like I have in mine, the maintenance of that is every few months. Every 8 weeks or maybe 6 weeks, maybe you'll pull out one of the inserts and maybe rinse it and put it back in. Very simple, and so care is pretty minimal. You certainly want to clean the bottom every now and then, and just make sure that the water is pristine, is in good shape. But it doesn't really require that much, only because you don't have that much waste production going on. So that's point number 4, ease of care. I mean, I have in mind, I have a very simple, slow flow hang inside, sort of an internal filter that comes with the top fin unit that the fish is in. I put an almond leaf in there and I leave it in there until it decomposes. Then I replace it with another almond leaf that I get from the aquarium co-op. I have a cave from Underwater Galleries, and I have a piece of driftwood with some anubias on there that I picked up from a local fish store. It was about 16 bucks, and I have a sprinkle of gravel on the bottom. So it's just a very simple setup. There is a heater in there. They like to be warm. Think about it. They're in these shallow ponds that don't move much in warm, humid parts of the world, right? And so they're used to having it, warm. So I keep the tank around 79 degrees, 80 degrees. It's got a small little heater in there that uses maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 watts. I mean, just a real small heater. So your cost of keeping them and food. I mean, a little vial of Betta food is going to last you probably 6 months, maybe a year. So I mean, just very light, unless you have like 20 Betta tanks. And now, what's the last point? Point number 5. Point number 5 is just plain outright beauty, and whether it's the elegant way that they move around, or the beautiful fluorescent type coloration that they have in the different varieties, and just plain outright beauty would be number 5. And sitting and watching this fish move around, and it's just a pleasure, because it is such a beautiful piece of eye candy that is just so much fun to look at. And it's just very elegant the way they kind of wiggle and sort of just sort of drift around with those massive fins. They're not a fish that's designed like a trout, like this guy here, who's designed for a high speed attack of a they're not a prey, they're not a predator, and they're not going after other fish at high speed, and that's not what's going on. These fish are just sort of elegant, slow moving, and because they live in relatively small bodies of water, they haven't really evolved to need very high speed, shark-like attack abilities. So they just kind of gently come over to the surface and kind of pick at the food, and every now and then go up there and take a gulp of air and kind of hang out and go into the cave, or in the case of my fish, go under the cave and play around the plants. And anyway, just very relaxing and very different from other tanks where you're sitting there and you're watching one fish chase another fish, and you're hoping that there isn't going to be a lip locking there. Certainly, if I put another male in there, there'd be some fights for sure. So at any rate, that's my 2 cents on why we need to have a Betta fish in our life. I really am enjoying them. I understand Lisa's fascination with them over at KG Tropicals, and maybe at some point in the future I'll pick up a few more of them. I really love the koi variety of Betta, just all the mix of browns and blacks and whites. So that's something that maybe I'll add to my collection at some point. Thank you so much for listening, and be sure to hit that thumbs up and the subscribe and the bell if you haven't already, if you like the content of the channel. And if you'd like to support the channel, consider becoming a member of the Garage Gang, a member of Patreon. All the details are down below in the description under the video. All right, thank you for tuning in, and join me and a great group of fish keepers for the Cichlids and Coffee live stream. That's every Saturday at 11 a.m. Central Time. That's 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. Okay? Thank you, my friends. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.